I know a couple of you on here already utilize InFocus Switch, and there are others of you who have never seen any of the InFocus products before. So, what we're going to talk about today is our turbo packs, or a subset of our turbo packs, as they can be utilized within the InFocus Switch software. And at the same time, we have been developing our own apps for the InFocus App Store that are both being used within the Turbo Packs as well as those that are available now for anyone to get their hands on if needed. So what I'm going to do is log in to my demo user through the Switch web portal. And the first thing that we're brought to is the submit jobs area. So what this allows you to do is drag and drop files onto and kick off workflows, depending on what those workflows are going to do. In this particular case, I have 3 workflows to talk about, both from an imposition side and from a pre-flight side as it relates to the turbo packs that are for sale now. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about pre-flight. Obviously, it's one of the most important things when we're talking about PDF documents. We want to make sure they're set up correctly. We want to validate anything that needs to be validated, and then also manipulate the file so it's print ready. So what I have open in Acrobat here is a bird logo, a label that essentially it's missing a die line. It needs to have a die line added on. And when we add that die line, we're obviously missing bleed as well. So what we're going to do through the pre-flight workflow is validate that the contents of the file is okay. We are going to add that missing bleed as well as add the die line so it's print ready. Now, how do I kick that off? I am going to select my bird label, and this is off screen. I am going to drag and drop it onto my pre-flight submit. And what prompts is a set of fields that we can utilize to run some of those actions as I mentioned. So again, adding a die line, we actually want to enable this. And out of the box with the turbo pack for this pre-flighting workflow, we have the capability right now to do one of 3 different styles for die lines: a general rectangle, an ellipse, and a shape. Now, if we go back to this file, we can see that this is a pretty complex shape. A rectangle and an ellipse is not going to fly here, so we are going to specify the shape die line to be able to map to that contour correctly. The other thing I mentioned we can do is we can add a print card. Now, the print card would and can include more information, but very simply, it's going to give you basic information smack to the bottom of the page with the job number specified here, the customer, and then maybe the product type if you were using this pre-flight to pre-flight multiple different products that you work with. In this particular case, I'm just going to turn off the print card and I'm going to submit this. So when a file is submitted, that then goes behind the scenes to Switch to action upon that. And that's going to take a couple of seconds to pre-flight, to add that die line, and then push that out to a job folder ready for someone in pre-press to validate that file, or we can even pass that directly to a RIP, a hot folder, wherever else it needs to go within that process. And to show you what that looks like based off the options that I specified, in my second tab here, this is the file with the additional bleed added, as well as the die line added to it. So if I toggle between these, you can see the difference added within a short period of time. But you're not limited to just this. I mentioned about the pre-flight report. In another file here, we can actually tailor the pre-flight report and brand it with your colors, and that's all built into the turbo pack. So you can output to your customer, send this to your customer to validate what's actually wrong with the file, what needs to be corrected. And all these bookmarks we have on the left-hand side can be enabled or disabled depending on how complex you would like this pre-flight report to be. And lastly, I mentioned about the proof card. So this is a standard proof card that we've generated through the workflow. This can be tailored through the turbo pack with your branding or any other information that needs to be displayed here. But as I mentioned, we're specifying the job number, the customer name, basic size dimensions, the date it was pushed through the workflow, and the file name. So that was very high level on our pre-flight submit workflow. We could, of course, expand this out, customize the pre-flight report to meet the needs, whether you wanted to run or pre-flight for a very specific press or a very specific product type. All that can be tailored through the hours that are within the sale of the turbo pack itself. I'm going to quickly run through the basic imposition just to get you an idea of how that works. And I have a business card which I'm going to drag and drop, which you can see actually exposes quite a few more options that you saw in compared to the pre-flight process. So this is meant to be a general imposition workflow to sort of hit the ground running, get you going if you don't have anything now. This being the ability to do basic step and repeat. So how many across, how many down do we want to do? Are we going to duplex this file? Is it front and back? How do we want to handle the sheet? Where do we want to align on the sheet? The width and height, and the unit of measurement that we're working with. So all this can be customized for each individual file that you pass through. And when you submit this, this is going to kick off behind the scenes through Switch, through the TurboPack workflows, step and repeat the file, and then display it back to the user. So I already have a job waiting, so I'm actually not going to submit this job. But you see on the left-hand side, we have under check jobs, we have an alert job. And since I've already pushed through a business card example, in my check job, what I can do is I can validate that by clicking on view. And what view is going to do is open up the document in another tab for me. And you can see based off the parameters that I specified, I wanted it stepped 4 across, and I believe this was 6 down or 5 down. So because I specified it was duplex, it also stepped the back page as well. And this was all done through dragging and dropping, changing those settings, and hitting submit. So now, again, this can be pushed to a hot folder directly to a RIP, or it could be put and someone in prepress can be notified to validate the file as a stopgap without them actually having to step and repeat the file themselves. So the whole point of the turbo packs is to have significant time savings and to hit the ground running with basic automation. We want to eliminate human touch points, get the pre-flight report automated and simple corrections done as quickly as possible. And for those basic step and repeat jobs, in this particular case, we want to make sure that we get that done as quickly as possible so your team can focus on the customizable jobs or anything that really requires more time and hands-on from a human. So lastly, what I'm going to do is talk about the apps that both we're using within the Turbo Pack as well as that are available on the App Store itself. And what I'm going to do is actually open up the App Store here. And all I did was type in Significans to show the varying apps that we have available. We do have others coming down the pipeline. And as James talked about with the virtual ink books, we are working on a virtual ink book connector to be able to add inks, remove inks, add books, et cetera, et cetera. All those options that you saw James doing through the interface will all be possible through a Switch app in our roadmap later on when we fully flush that out and when we get that up there so you can use it. But the apps that we have available right now, we denote by a sort of color coding. We have free ones and we have our paid XML toolkit. So the bread and butter, the most important one we're using for the Turbo Packs is the XML toolkit, which is included in the cost of the Turbo Pack itself. This allows you to create XML, edit XML, split join, and then manipulate the file into different file formats if it's required. So if you have customers, for example, that send you data dumps in Excel and you need to convert that into XML to use within Switch, all that can be done through this pack. And of course, we have some sample flows, resources. If you were to try this out, if you have Switch currently, you can, of course, take advantage of the 30-day free trial to test it yourself. And essentially be able to add that into your workflows and get going right away. That, in a nutshell, was the apps that we have on the App Store and the initial Turbo Pack workflows to sort of get you on, going and get you as automated in a short period of time as possible.